Hello, everyone. Wanted to take a quick moment to let everyone know that the Ebon Hawk has been nominated for the annual Money Tree Top 10 Star Wars Podcast Awards. We're honored to be nominated amongst a bunch of other great Star Wars podcasts. Voting goes until April the 30th, and if you'd like to vote for us or your favorite Star Wars podcast, check out the link in our Instagram bios. May the Force be with you.
Hello there, this is Cassia.
And this is Brian.
Welcome to the Ebon Hawk, a podcast discussing Star Wars news and Knights of the Old Republic.
Spoiler alert for the Knights of the Old Republic series and the Star Wars films, TV shows, and all other media.
This is where the fun begins. Alrighty, so here we are. We finished up going through how we envisioned the first movie going in episode 64. We should have made a Nintendo 64 joke, but we did not. Yeah.
We missed that one, yeah.
If all goes according to plan, I think this will be episode 66, so we're gonna execute it, and hopefully it goes, well for us. So, if you're looking at KOTOR, in movie 1, we got the Ebon Hawk crew safely off the Endar Spire. We met some new team members and rescued Bastila from terrorists. And we did some Jedi training on Dantooine and helped Zalbar take his rightful place back on Kashyyyk. Alright, so now we just need to figure out how, with the second installment of Knights of the Old Republic, how it should play out. So we thought it'd be fun to kind of give a bit of a general overview towards the plot. And before we get really into it, I just wanted to read an Apple Podcast review. This one comes from Galaxy of Film, which is a podcast which we follow on Instagram, and they're always sharing our stories. And they say, the Ebon Hawk podcast continues to show nothing but love for an era in Star Wars which at times feels forgotten by its creators. Side note, I just want to say, if you read The High Republic, there's a lot in that about the Old Republic, so...
Yeah, they're planting some seeds, hopefully.
They're planting seeds, building bridges, so I think if you're kind of feeling like it's neglected, The High Republic is where to go. And then they continue, from plotting a film adaptation to something as simple as discussing related merchandise, this podcast is the place to go if you enjoy Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Great host, and can't wait to see how things flow with their new co-host. So this was a very nice review written in the interim period, and I just want to say, Brian, you're doing a great job, and yeah.
And thank you, Galaxy of Film. Go check out their podcast, too.
Yeah, definitely. If you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, it helps a lot more people find our podcast, and we'll read your review in one of our episodes. So thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, now we're getting ready to get kind of this overview going. So we've just left Kashyyyk. The team was celebrating and getting ready to go, but where we're going to, open the second installment of this trilogy. And I think we both are on the same page that we want to start on Tatooine. At least that's kind of the location in the game. But Cassia, do you think we should go to Tatooine? We've been to Tatooine a lot. Should we try to check out a different desert planet, or maybe go to Jeddah, or what do you think?
I wonder almost if Tatooine has been in too many movies and too many shows. I just wonder if it'd be like, oh, they're just going to Tatooine because of nostalgia, even though in 2003, I don't feel like it was too much Tatooine, but maybe some fans are just feeling I'm feeling a little bit of a Tatooine overload, So I was kind of thinking if you have Revenant crew visiting Tatooine, I feel like it would make sense because that's where the the game went, but and like they also refer to it like kind of covertly, I would say, in The Mandalorian. But I was thinking, like, if Tatooine is just a little bit too overdone, they could visit Jeddah, which is a world that we see in Rogue One,
Hmm.
and you kind of get the vibe that like Jeddah is close to Jedi, and I think in canon it's like somewhere that like meant a lot to the Jedi, but they kind of lost sight of it, kind of towards the Clone Wars. So I was like, maybe it would be cool to just kind of see somewhere else, and it's a desert. You could like still kind of get the same feel of it, and
Sure. Yeah.
Jeddah is based on Jerusalem, so I just think it would be a fascinating area to realize. But no matter which world it's on, even if it's on another world, I feel like the plot could still go the same.
Yeah. I think you do have to worry about going to, Tatooine, the Tatooine well, one too many times. But I think I'm okay with going to Tatooine myself. I think it would be interesting to see it that far back in the past. I think that would be kind of a good contrast and a good reminder that this is set 4,000 years before we would have ever seen Tatooine before. So I think that would be interesting just
Yeah.
to kind of see how it looked in the past, and I think it would be a good opportunity to explore Tatooine a little bit more. Because we only ever kind of get to see like the cantina, or we'll see the Mandalorian going in to talk to the bounty hunter guild.
Yeah.
But I think to actually like be in the city and spend some time there wandering around, I think would be pretty cool.
If it looked different, like significantly different, I would be down with Tatooine.
Yeah.
But if it looked the same and it's like, look where Han used to sit 4000 BC, I mean, like, no, that's boring. It's done.
Yeah, well, so speaking of that, so in the game you land in Anchorhead. Now, as far as I know, I don't think we've ever actually seen Anchorhead in any of the films or TV shows. So I don't think visually we've ever seen it. It's just been a place that they kind of talked about. We've seen Mos Eisley and Mos Pelgo and things like that, but I don't think we've ever seen Anchorhead. So I guess it would be a new location. But what do you think kind of the big differences would be? So if you take, Tatooine 4,000 years before we had ever seen it, what do you think it might look like? Are there any noticeable differences or?
Um, I wonder if they could have like different colors of stucco just to kind of like give it a different feel. And maybe it could be built kind of according to like medieval cities,
Mhm.
like kind of like high towers and kind of more fortressy.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It'd be kind of a pretty, tight together city and kind of a walled city like you'd, see in, kind of these medieval towns. So it'd have more of that feel to it. And I think in the game, I think it is a walled city, if I'm not mistaken too. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, so I just think it'd look a little bit more medieval looking. It wouldn't be quite as, deserty and spread out as what we see later. And then when we're in Tatooine, in the game, there are a couple of side quests that you can do. So I think it's going to be important to kind of address those, whether we think that they would have a place in the film or not, or how those would kind of play out, or if they even need to happen on Tatooine or somewhere else. So in the game, you get a couple. So one is Bastila meets her mother there. What do you think about that one? Is that a key one for our story?
Oh, I would say that's a critical one that you want to have happen. Definitely in the second movie, I would say. The first movie might be a little bit too early.
Right.
But I mean, if you're trying to build the bond and like a romance, I would say that Bastila meeting her mother is like you get to see more of the human side, I think, to Bastila.
Hmm.
Like, kind of like see the life she has outside of being a Jedi. And I guess part of me just has like can just kind of see a fun, like how back in the day you would watch the bonus features for like when the prequels came out and they would like have TV spots and like I'm just like, oh, I have the perfect TV spot picked out for this side quest, because maybe you have Bastila's mother, and my fan cast for Helena Shan is actually Helena Bonham Carter.
Oh, okay.
I just want to have Helena play Helena, And they kind of shared a role of Princess Margaret in The Crown, so I'm just like, having a whole lot of meta fun. But maybe when they meet, the mom could be like, in the TV spot, it could be like, I didn't want you risking your life searching for treasure and doing all this. And then you kind of cut back to like seeing like Bastila in a fight and then like searching literally for treasure, like a star
Right.
map, like your father. And it's like, yeah, I'm totally not doing that as a Jedi. So that's just kind of the TV spot I have in my mind.
No, I like that.
Disney, hire me.
No, I think that's an important one to keep in. It really sort of sheds some light on Bastila's kind of mental state with how she's dealing with, with her former family life and how she's dealing with the Jedi. So I say yes to Bastila's side quest. Now, the next one up, so we have Canderous. He's going to confront Jaggy, I believe is how you pronounce it. Now, Jaggy is another Mandalorian. They fought together, and there's a little bit of bad history there. Jaggy thinks that Canderous had betrayed him in the Mandalorian Wars, and Canderous doesn't see it that way. What about that one? Do you think that one's important for the story?
I think it's a good one. It could either take place like in the first movie or the second movie. It depends like what the writer and director kind of intend for Canderous. Maybe if he kind of has a role, like it depends what they want his role to be, just so he has a purpose being in the Ebon Hawk crew.
Yeah.
So I'm down with it. It gives him something to kind of act.
Okay, I'm in favor of this one too, but I'm gonna give a little spoiler here for when we finally do our final pitch for this second installment. I think that it's going to happen kind of off screen. I think maybe they run into each other as we're getting ready to leave Tatooine, and Canderous stays behind to deal with him. So that's kind of how we where his story stops. But I think that this confrontation happens. I don't think that we see it.
Ooh, I like that idea. And they could always do like a comic tie-in to be like, this is what happened. This is what happened when Canderous was off screen before he came to the Leviathan, So.
And then the other one, and I think I know where we're both going to be on this one. So Mission finds her brother on Tatooine. What do you think about that?
Mission was voted off the island with Zalbar. No, just kidding. So at the conclusion of our proposed KOTOR film, we just thought that having Zalbar reclaiming his home, and we just thought it was more fitting for him to stay, and I think it was good for Mission to kind of realize like her brother ghosted her and was never coming back, and moving on and embracing the found family she had. And she lost Terrace, but she and Zalbar have a new place on Kashyyyk, and I just thought that is more fitting, because I think it would just maybe be a little bit too much if Mission ran into Griff. And I think you could maybe have references to Zalbar and Mission, like maybe in a hologram, and like they say they're doing well, and like they'll be like, wait, did you get abducted? What happened?
They get a news update from Kashyyyk to find out how they're doing.
But I definitely have him return for the third movie, and I'm just gonna keep plugging that Claudia Gray should definitely get a novel chronicling the Zalbar and Mission friendship if that's ever adapted.
Yeah, I'm all in on that.
Because she'd be great.
As far as this Mission and Griff side quests go, I'm going to say no. I think if you want to sort of give it a little bit of a nod, like we'd said, we kind of decided to leave Mission and Zalbar back on Kashyyyk, but maybe you run across Griff in a cantina or somewhere, and he sees your ship and knows that it got off of there. So maybe you just have kind of a run-in with him where you tell him that she's on Kashyyyk
Yeah,
or something like that.
yeah. Or you just see a blue Twi'lek in the background, and you learn reading one of the like guides. It'll be like, "This is Mission's brother," but Mission wasn't there, so she wasn't there to recognize him.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
there you
like
go. I like that.
yeah,
So yeah, so but people that are there. So when we get to Tatooine, we're going to pick up another member of the or potential member, I guess, of the Ebon Hawk crew. So we meet the droid HK-47.
iconic.
That's right. Now, in the game, you
Yeah,
buy him to be a translator, basically, to help speak with the Sand people up as part of as you're going on this quest. But what do you think? Is that how we meet up with HK-47, or are we going to buy him, or are we going to meet him some other way? Or
it depends what kind of. We'll get more into like Tatooine and like how we would kind of break it
Mhm.
down. But I'm not opposed to buying him, but I'm not opposed to like running into him
Okay,
and like maybe he's like, you killed my master, so therefore my programming says that you're my new master, while they're like on a mission, and they're kind of just stuck with him.
right,
And in my head, like in this story we're telling, like T3M4 belongs to Bastila, and then HK-47 would belong to Revan. So it's kind of like how
mm,
the droids kind of like R2 and C3PO would kind of trade off between Anakin and Padme,
right.
So I would just try to echo that like poetry and have that rhyme, So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think for me, I don't think that purchasing him is probably the best way to bring him into the party. I think maybe if you do some reading up on HK-47, you get kind of some different things. But supposedly, I guess he was Revan's droid at some point, like prior to to this taking place. So maybe you kind of
Yeah.
lean into that, and maybe Revan had left him at the star map. So when you finally get there, he's there, kind of guarding it, or just waiting for Revan to come
Yeah.
back, something like that, maybe.
I think I would want him kind of more towards the beginning of Tatooine, but that is a good thing to kind of link it to the star
Hmm.
map.
As far as like his design goes, kind of moves and looks the same as like K2SO. Do you think that's any trouble there? Should we change the design, or do you think he's different enough? Or
I think the design is different enough. I think it's just the personality of the droid, kind of
hmm,
snarky,
yeah,
and a little bit deadpan. I think HK-47 definitely inspired K2SO. So I wonder if some fans would just be like, "Oh, they're just trying to rip off, K2SO," and it's like, well, actually, this one kind of came first,
right.
So I don't think you could quite have Alan Tudyk voice HK-47 after voicing K2SO, but we'll have to be thinking of some good fan casts for the future.
So make sure everyone listening out there be thinking of who you would want to portray HK-47 in the movies. That way, when we talk about Tatooine here in a few weeks, we can uh, dig a little bit deeper into this guy. So, but yeah, I don't think that the similarities are too much. He's going to be older model. He's going to be kind of rust colored. He's going to have a little bit stiffer movement and probably a little bit more of a robotic sounding voice than K2 did. So I don't think that the similarities are going to be too much there. So
Yeah, and like it's 4,000 years ago, so I think fans should just be, and like it's been a few years since Rogue One came out, like 5 years, I think, like
yeah.
just since the first trailer came out. So I think I think there would be enough breathing room. So
Finally, on Tatooine, to get to the star map, there is a very large, scary crate dragon in the way. Now, we saw a crate dragon in The Mandalorian. That was apparently the greater crate variety. This one is called a canyon crate, so it's a little bit smaller. But do you think it's going to
hmm.
have kind of the same physical look as it did in The Mandalorian, or what do you think?
I would rather they have to fight like three different crate dragons, and if you look at Attack of the Clones, when Anakin and Obi-Wan are fighting Dooku, it kind of represents like how they fight against the dark side and like who they are as Jedi. Anakin kind of rushes headlong into it and kind of gets hurt, and then and you see Yoda just as like totally in control and would have won,
Yeah.
and Obi-Wan does well, but like part of me is just like, ooh, let's like show the three characters. Like, I think Revan and Bastila would definitely be there. I don't know if you would want
Hmm.
to have Karth or Jolie or whoever was going to be there, maybe HK-47. We don't have the 3-party limit in a movie. You just want to have
Right.
who
Yeah.
fits there,
Who makes sense. Yeah.
Maybe you could be like the Force and like blasters, and just kind of like shows how they have to fight, So
Hmm.
I would just say 3 smaller crate dragons, and I don't know, that Mando episode. Yeah, I'm still kind of like, that's a ripoff of Dune, but so oh well.
Yeah. Now you can actually, so if you've ever read the Star Wars Adventures comics, they're kind of geared at the younger audience, but they did like a preview issue for like I think it was for like San Diego Comic Con or something. But you can actually go on StarWars.com and read it if you want to. And they actually have a picture of this little canyon crate dragon, and he looks more just dragon-like than he did in the Mandalorian. So I'm guessing that he'd probably be more along those lines.
Yeah,
If you want to get a look at that, I'm
yeah,
gonna
I'd be down.
that Cassia posted on the Instagram, so you can get a little picture of this guy. So
Oh, awesome. And I just realized something.
okay,
So KOTOR is kind of like the medieval period. They're literally fighting a
hmm,
dragon.
yeah,
So
that's right.
there's the depth of our understanding, and we're like, oh, it's a dragon. So that's cool. They're literally knights slaying dragons.
Knights
So
slaying dragons. Yeah, exactly. So see, now you learned all about the very brief history that we knew about crate dragons. If you want to learn a little bit more about us and what we've got going on, a good place to do that is on our Patreon, which is just www.patreon.com/EvanHawk Podcast. We've got scripts that we post there, kind of behind the scenes stuff, some polls. Cassia has the first recap episode up talking about the Mandalorian. So we got some more stuff like that coming our way. So yeah, just go check that out over on Patreon. You can go to that, like I said, www.patreon.com/EvanHawk Podcast, or the link is in our Instagram bio as well. Okay, so we've slayed the crate dragon. Time to get the sand off of us, as Anakin would want to do, and we are going to make our way to Manon. So, Cassia, what do you want to see? What's the main thing you want to see on Manon?
um just to kind of evoke the song that plays when you're on Manon, like
Hmm.
just kind of like it's a nice planet, like the sunlight just hits the water right. I think it's kind of like a little bit like Camino, except it's not raining,
Yeah,
There's a big mechanical city to explore, but it's just surrounded by water. It's very beautiful. The music is pleasant. But I think what I would be excited for is that this is kind of like where like it's a neutral zone, like in the middle of like I guess a war or a crusade. So like the Sith and Republic are here. So I feel like it would be kind of like spy kind of noir kind of a feel there, and that's what I would love to see.
when I play through this section, I get a lot of like Cold War type vibes with it, just kind of hidden
Yeah.
information and stuff. But yeah, that's what I want to see. Kind of the same as you. Like you mentioned, it's very much like Camino. I had here in my notes that it's basically just like the opposite of Camino, because Camino's all stormy and violent waves. This is more like beautiful ocean and nice sunsets and things. So I just want to see kind of how they would pull off this sort of city just sitting on top of the water, and you have just these big, huge open spaces where you can just see, the ocean in the background. I just think it would be really cool to look at, and a very different environment than we've ever seen in Star Wars before. So,
yeah, it would be lovely to see, and if it were a real place, like I'm sure many people would vacation there.
You could go there. So, well, when you get to Manan, you're going to meet the local population. So the Selkath. Now, have we seen Selkath before?
I feel like they've been in the Clone Wars and Rebels cartoons, and in some of the old Legends comics, I would say.
Yeah, I think so. There's a Selkath bounty hunter in the Clone Wars. So working for Count Dooku, I believe, is how he gets wrangled in there. So it's going to be in season 3 if you want to have a closer look. Now, in the game, the Selkath, they kind of sound like the Geonosians, right? They talk with like these clicks and kind of these kind of throaty sounds. But in the Clone Wars cartoon, they spoke English or basic, I guess, in the Star Wars world. So in a movie, do you think we'd have them speaking basic or?
Maybe it could be both.
Okay.
Like accented basic.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's like something's translating for them. That would be cool. Like just some variety, I think would be cool.
Yeah.
It's kind of a relatively new creature, like for the audience to see. So yeah, it'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be cool. And the Selkath, they farm Kolto, which is kind of a healing agent before I guess they're developing Bacta in the High Republic. So you're going to get some mentions of that in the High Republic books, which is pretty cool. So another one of those little links they've got going on there. So
yeah, Kolto, I think they find it on the ocean floor. It's like a sea mineral, and which kind of evokes like the Dead Sea, the salt's there, some natural springs, where salt occurs. And I guess Kolto is kind of like proto-Bacta. So it's not what Luke was swimming in. It was like the granddaddy, of Bacta.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool to get to see that. Now, on Manan, we got another side quest there that pops up in the game. What do you think about this one for the film? So on Manan, Jolie runs into his friend Alora, and her husband is on trial for murder. Now, do you think that is going to play a role in a film, or is that going to get in the way? What do you think about that one?
I think that it would be interesting. I think you would have to adapt it so it wasn't exactly the way it happened in the game. I think it would be good to have like someone remember Jolie, and I believe that Alora's husband Sunri is actually guilty. So I just think it would be interesting to like have it kind of to get tangled into a trial, but it's plot related. Like it's like you can't access the area or you can't find out what you need about the star map unless you do the trial. And it kind of raises the Cold War vibes of it all. Like you can't really trust each other, and like seeing like who's kind of more closer to the light, who's closer to the dark. And I think it would kind of heighten like Bastila's, she's kind of becoming a little bit more open, to Revan, but then she's literally keeping the secret that, oh, he's Revan, so
right.
I think they could have fun. Like, it's like, how could you could have conversations and it's like, how could someone lie to someone, about that? And then it's like, yeah, crazy, it would be
Bastila
funny.
gives him like the that side eye meme.
Kind of like how you see like Superman stories go, and it's like he's kind of keeping his secret identity, and it's kind of like the conversation is meaning many things, So
yeah, no, I think we should keep it in at least somewhat, and I think that it just you kind of talked about it there a little bit. It just kind of brings up some good options for maybe some infighting in the group about whether they should, really try to kind of go through this trial sort of thing, or if they just want to break them out of there And if they're gonna have to go in and steal stuff from the Republic or steal stuff from the Sith, I think that there's a lot of good layers there to kind of flesh out where one's feelings. I don't know that we need to do the whole trial and play detective like we do in the game, but I think that there's some good opportunities there to make that portion interesting.
Yeah. I would just love to kind of highlight the Cold War kind of spy vibes and like the issue of trust, because the trust is going to be breached soon. So
Yeah.
just to kind of hammer that home, that's what I would like.
Yeah, for sure. And so we're on Manon. We got to get to the star map. Now the star map is underwater. It's actually down like on the ocean floor where they're mining for colto. Now in the game, there's like a big fish that gets agitated, and he sends out these like sonic waves, and it kind of makes everyone go crazy. And they're kind of like almost like zombies in the game, right? When you get down below the surface of the water. What do you think about for the film? Do you think it would be do you think it would have kind of these like horror movie vibes, or would it look a little different? Or
I think it would be good to have a beast kind of guard the two star maps. Like one's in a desert, one's kind of like, in an ocean. But I wouldn't want the message just to be like, kill what's in your way. I'd rather have the message be like, they respect this creature that's been there long before they were and will be there long after they're gone, and kind of like, you don't have to kill it, you just have to respect it, and you can get what you need. And I don't think it would translate really well to have like the sonic waves to make people crazy. I would just say like, make it kind of eerie and be like, they're kind of scared of this, but then be like, and have some tension, but then it's like, oh, it's gone, but then like the tension's still there, and you're like, why is the tension still there? And then it's like the Ebon Hawk is leaving, and then it's like, oh, the Leviathan is like, has us in its field,
Okay.
So that's what I would
Yeah, I
prefer.
like that. No, I don't think it needs to be like a horror film type of thing where like these zombie things. I think maybe it's more of like a trapped miner situation. Like they're kind of stuck down there. Maybe they're on the other side of this big sea creature or something like that. So maybe more of these miners being trapped versus going crazy for myself. But yeah, I think it would be cool to see another big creature and just kind of the way that you deal with them differently than how we did with the crate dragon, where that was kind of a battle, and this is more of a respecting their territory and moving. But I think it would just look really cool to see this big underwater creature as we're kind of moving through this underwater mine. So So we've made it down to the seafloor on Manon, gotten our next star map piece. But unfortunately, as we're heading out of that town, we're going to end up on the Leviathan. In the game, you get caught in their tractor beam, and that's no good. So you end up getting imprisoned on their ship. So the Leviathan is a Sith interdictor ship. And a fleet of these ships, including this one, that's what blew up Terrace. So these are some pretty massive ships, but we're going to actually get to see this one a little bit more up close and get to see the inside of one. And this ship is captained by Saul Kareth. Who is Saul Kareth, Cassia?
So he was Karth Onassi's kind of like boss and mentor, and he betrayed Karth and Karth's world, and he sided with Revan and Malak and ordered the bombardment of Telos, which is Karth's world. And because of him, his wife Morgana died, and Dustil was taken by the Sith. It's kind of like in real life if you had a boss that like kind of betrayed you and you thought you could trust them. So it's kind of like that.
Yeah, they were almost friends, right? So Saul, yeah, went and joined up with the Sith when Revan and Malik fell. So yeah, and it's going to be a chance for Karth to kind of face his demons there with Saul. So I think that that's going to be good for his character arc. But unfortunately, when we're on the Leviathan, in the game at least, Karth and Bastila and Revan are going to end up being caught and kind of put into this prison. Now, we obviously get them out because that's not how the story is going to end. So, how do you think we do that? Do you think we do it more of like a prison break kind of a thing or more of like an assault mission? So, think something along the lines of the episode of The Mandalorian last year, The Heiress, where they're kind of storming that cargo ship there. What do you think? Prison break or more of an assault type of a thing?
I would see it a little bit like both, just because both would be interesting to
Mm-hmm.
see. In my mind, well, in the game, you have to choose one character to break everyone out. And there's all different ways for everyone to do it. Like, some droids kind of act like they're out of repair, and they get, like, taken to, like, a droid, like, fixer-upper place. And then, like, some people, I think, act dead, or, like, kind of, like, stay on the ship, and then, like, they get separated in prison, you know? But in my
Mm-hmm.
mind, it would be Juhani and Canderous breaking people out. And
Okay.
because it's kind of like you have a Jedi and a Mandalorian working together for the greater good, you know? And so I think it's like there could be some stealth and then some overt action because Bastila, Revan, and Karth, they get taken in for interrogation. And so they're the most important to get out first, and then you get everyone else out. So I think at the beginning it's a prison break, and then everyone kind of gets off to the Ebon Hawk until the next part.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a prison break too is the way I would go. I think that's kind of the most interesting little sneaking around. And yeah, so when we do get them broken out of prison, very important part. Malik shows up, right? So Saul Kareth put in the call, said, "Hey, I caught your guys. Come pick them up." So Malik shows up, and we finally get our confrontation with the big bad guy of this thing. So, who do you think is going to fight Malik?
I would kind of like it if Bastel and Revan, and even a bit of Karth, Karth isn't useless. He could shoot at him.
Yeah, there you go.
But it could be a little bit of a fight, but I think like Malik is going to be a whole lot more powerful than Revan at this instance.
Hmm.
But Malik will reveal the truth to Revan, and then like no one in that room is going to be in a great mental state except for like Malik. So I would say it could be a little bit of a kind of a shout match confrontation, like a little bit of lightsabers, but then Darth Malik is really there just to kind of like be like, "You're Revan. This is true. This is really happening," And
Hmm.
I'd kind of
Yep.
say like, kind of just do the reveal like it happens in the game, and then like Fasila has to say it's true. It's written on her face, body posture, language, what she's saying, like,
Hmm.
but I think, like, in that instance, she's like, my life is over. I might as well just try to take down Malik, and then, like, uh, so Karth and Revan have to leave, and then in my mind, like, Bastila is really aggressive, not in a great mental state, because Revan
Hmm.
knows who he is, and like she was kind of lying, and I think Malik would kind of goad her into like being like, you're being held back. And in my mind, she just tries to end Malik. This is what she's been training for, but she's not in a great mental area, so she's just going to do it any way she can. And I think she's not going to realize that she's using the dark side. But in my mind, she tries to call on battle meditation, but then because
Oh,
she's
okay.
aligned with the dark side, it acts for the dark side, and like there was gonna be maybe like a little bit of a Jedi strike team sent to save her, but because she was kind of falling to the dark side, she kills them, and then Malik reveals that, and then she feels guilty, and then she kind of realizes like the Jedi Council had me like set me up to die, keep
Hmm.
secrets, and look where it got me. Like I'm gonna join Malik. This seems like all I have. But what do you see
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah. So I see kind of Revan kind of starting the fight with Malik. But it kind of depends on who you have there. So I'd see him kind of starting the fight. I don't know that he's probably going to square off particularly well with Malik, but I think that he's going to have to kind of put the fight on hold because something's happening to Juhani or Jolie or whoever we have, kind of doing the prison break. Now, while this is going on, I actually think that Karth is up dealing with Saul, so I think that he's probably not at the fight at this time. And he's going to kind of come into it right at the tail end. But yeah, I think Revan starts the fight, then has to kind of stop to either save Juhani or Jolie or protect them or something like that, and then Bastila kind of takes over for him, and that's where they get separated and we get the reveal there. So I think that's how the fight's going to play out.
Yeah. I guess one thing I'd be concerned about, like if Karth isn't there, I feel like he needs to have. Well, I guess Saul Karath does tell Karth as he's dying, and then Bastila confirms it.
Hmm.
So, would you have Bastila confirm it to Karth before she's kind of separated?
I think what I would do is he would just be up there with Saul, and we get kind of cutting back and forth between the two confrontation. I don't think that Saul is going to tell him, but I think that maybe he shows back up at the end of the fight and with Malik and kind of hears the exchange there. So that's how he gets clued into it.
Ooh,
So
I love drama. Like, yeah, it's great. So, yeah, it'll be fun to tackle that.
yeah,
So, uh, plenty of different tones, you know. So it'll be fun to like kind of carve out what films and different facets of art history and all that would influence like the KOTOR cycle, especially in the second iteration. All right, so Ironic Designs asks, will characters from KOTOR 2 cameo in the film? If so, who? What do you think, Brian?
so Ironic Designs always asks these hard hitting questions that make me have to think a lot. But I don't think we're going to have a cameo. I don't think that there's really room for it. There's already so many characters to try to do a cameo. But if I was going to do something, and I think you could really easily, and it wouldn't throw off the film, you wouldn't have to know who this person is to if you're just coming in, if you never played the games, if you didn't know any of the lore. When we get to Korriban, which will be a little bit further down the road here, I think maybe when you're at the Sith Temple, maybe you get some maybe like a relief or some texts or something that mentions Darth Treya. Um, and I think you can kind of put it in that way where it's not going to really affect the story in any way. But if you know, you know, and if you don't know, then that's okay. But kind of gets a plants a little seed there for what's to come. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes with these kind of films, I'm like, they didn't even foreshadow these characters in the preceding films, but then sometimes when they do foreshadow them, I'm like, it was a little bit too obvious what they were trying to do, you know? So
Hmm.
like, um, like if it were too much, I kind of just don't like Easter eggs because sometimes I feel like those are just thrown in for people to like talk about on YouTube and stuff, and
Right.
sometimes I hate that. But what I would actually do is the character from KOTOR 2 that I would have be on the Jedi Council on Dantooine, Atris. She would be the link,
Oh, okay.
you know, and maybe in the third movie when Revan, like, there could be a scene where it's like he kind of has to come to grips more
Hmm.
that he's kind of settled into the identity. He can be like, I remember my master. I had a few masters, but one I considered my master more than any other, and it's kind of alluding to Kreia. I don't know if she would need to appear, but I think just appearing in, just being mentioned is enough,
Hmm.
So
Yep.
that's what I would say.
Good question. Ironic designs. That's a tricky one.
So Yavin 4, it appears in the game.
Hmm.
It's a little bit of like a world where you can buy some pretty cool gear. Do you think it would need to appear in Knights of the Old Republic?
Yeah, it's kind of like the rest stop, right? You just go there and reload on all of your stuff. Now, when I played the game, when I just played through it most recently, I didn't go to Yavin 4 at all, so I don't, so I didn't need it. But I do think that maybe it would be good to have in a film. We could at least mention it, or maybe you could use it as kind of like a place to queue up the team members, right? So maybe like I'd mentioned earlier, maybe Canderous kind of stays behind to deal with Jaggy on Tatooine. Maybe when he says he's going to stay, maybe you just say, okay, we'll meet you on Yavin 4, or something like that. So kind of mention it, but I don't know that we necessarily need to go there, but I'm okay with it either way. What do you think about Yavin 4? Do you stop there on your playthroughs? Or?
I think I went there just to go there and buy some stuff, but I think in a movie it wouldn't necessarily be needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I kind of am just not really partial to Yavin 4 appearing. But I mean, maybe it could just kind of be like a gas station world.
Yeah,
So,
I guess maybe after you get off the Leviathan, maybe that's just where you need to go to regroup or something maybe. But yeah, it doesn't it
yeah.
feels to me like we just kind of be forcing it in there unnecessarily. So
Yeah. Would you have Calo Nord or Darth Bandon appear? And if so, in which movie?
so no, in the second film here, I don't think that we're going to see either of them. I think we're going to deal with Calo Nord on Terrace and Darth Bandon somewhere else. I think Bastila is going to dispatch of him before we get this final scene with Malik. So I think I'm good without having either of those. I think we're already getting, the big crate dragon set piece to start the film. We're getting Malik at the end of the film. I
Yeah.
think that that's plenty.
Yeah, Calo Nord, I would be fine with him not even appearing, honestly.
Yeah.
But if he does appear, I would just have him die on Terrace, and that's the end of his story. Darth Bandon, it would be cool if he fought double lightsaber to double lightsaber with Bastila on
Hmm.
Kashyyyk. I just think it'd be interesting. Um, but I mean, I could also maybe see like Darth Bandon being called in as like Bastila stays behind, and it's a little bit of like Darth Malak kind of testing and be like, which one wins will be my apprentice, and like Bastila just is like kills him, and it's like you killed the intern, you're the replacement. Congratulations.
Yeah, there you go.
So, do you think there's any opportunity for a war in the stars, aka a Star War in this
Yeah, I think
film?
we can get a Star Wars. So I think coming out of the Leviathan, I think would be a good opportunity to have a little bit of a space battle. Everyone's kind of reeling from the reveal, so we're going to blast off on the Ebon Hawk. Maybe some, enemies
That would
enemies are coming
be,
out,
yeah.
attacking us, and you have to kind of, Karth's real agitated, and Revan's real agitated. Everyone's real agitated, but they have to kind of put that on pause to take care of the space battle. I think that would be good. And then
Yeah.
um, if you went with my idea of leaving Canderous behind, or even Mission and Zalbar, maybe that this would be a good point to kind of reintroduce them to the party right at the end of the film. Could kind of show up for this space battle, possibly. So
Yeah. I would love it. I think the most organic place for a Star War, a space battle, would be the Ebon Hawk like escaping the Leviathan, and like Karth is just like not in a good place, and like maybe being like his co-pilot is actually Bastila,
mhm.
so I don't know who would fill in there, if it was Canderous or something, and it's like, whoa, Karth, you're taking this a little, like that was a really close turn to like
Right.
that cockpit,
Mhm.
and it's like, well, I'm just kind of dealing with stuff right now. Like, I just think it would be kind of like people aren't in a good headspace, you know, like sometimes just when people are driving,
Right, yeah.
they're not in a good mental space. And like you kind of see that, and it's like, I don't know how we did, but we got out, you know? So,
But yeah, I think that that would be a good place for it, and it would be pretty cool to see them, like I said, dealing with kind of the fallout of what they just learned, just a few moments before this starts to happen. So,
yeah. And then how do you think the reveal should happen in this film?
like I'd mentioned, I think Bastila is going to be fighting Malik, and it's going to be kind of a slower paced, more of an exchange of words. Kind of half lightsabers and half words, and they're going to be talking, and they'll be talking about Revan. Not to Revan, but they'll be talking about him, and he'll be right there. You have Karth kind of come in at the tail end, right when kind of the big reveal happens when Revan, or when Malik says that Revan is Revan, and you get kind of a look in Bastila's eyes, and kind of locks eyes with Revan, and that kind of tells him that yeah, it's true that that happened, and Karth is there and shaken, and then I think they Bastila gets separated from the party, but everyone else has to flee to get off of the ship, so they have the space battle, and then kind of the maybe like the after of the space battle, kind of the way that it ends is maybe you have Jolie on the Ebon Hawk kind of telling the history of Revan kind of to Karth and Revan sitting there.
Yeah. And I think like the whole party would need to hear it and react to it
Mm-hmm.
and like be like, "What?" And but there would have to be a little bit of denouement, I
Yeah.
think. And but what do you think, like, is there like a last shot you think would be uh fitting?
Oh, I don't. I think maybe, like I said, maybe Jolie is kind of telling them, and you'll see kind of Karth storming off, back up to the cockpit, just kind of quietly brooding as Karth is as one to do, and maybe you just get Revan, maybe kind of going up, behind him, and putting his hand on his shoulder or something, and saying, I didn't know, I had no idea, and it just kind of ends with them looking out the cockpit of the Ebon Hawk as they're making their way to the next destination, next star map. So, what do you what do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think the closeout's going to look like?
I would think Jolie kind of knew all along. I would think like having him kind of tell everything to the whole crew who's
Mm-hmm.
there, and like Revan says it's true, and then Karth is all like, "Bah!" and storms off,
Right.
you know, and then everyone kind of leaves, and it's just like Jolie and Revan in the room, and then Revan's like, "What do I do?" And it's like Jolie's like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And it's like, "Are you gonna be the Dark Lord of the Sith again?" And he's like, "I don't want that. I'm not that person anymore. I feel like this is a new path. I'm a new person. I'm worried about Bastila." And Jolie asks like, "What can you feel?" And then it's like, once I learned who I was, I can't feel the bond anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, like, I mean, it kind of relates to a quote by Edith Hamilton from the book Mythology, I believe, when she was kind of chronicling, summarizing Ovid's story of Eros and Psyche, and it's like the exact quote, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's love cannot exist where there is no trust. And I think like once like Revan kind of learns like what she was keeping from him, the bond, like it's a little bit like severed or dampened right then. Like it doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
it can't be fixed, but it's just kind of like it's something to work through. And then
Yeah.
Jolie will probably say like she's probably still alive, and Malik is probably gonna try to turn her to the dark side. And maybe Revan says, "I hope that's not true." And then like Jolie leaves the room, and then you see Revan kind of like maybe like they're orbiting a sun or something, or they're landed somewhere, and you kind of see his face. It's kind of like more towards the light than dark, you know, and it's like, but it's like
Hmm.
he's still kind of like just dealing with stuff, and then like you see like a face like kind of in the same position of like where Revan's is on the screen, but it's Bastla's, and like uh as Revan closes his eyes, Bastila opens hers, and maybe like they're yellow, and you kind of see like her lightsaber is red, and she's standing next to Malik, and like this is who she is now, you know, like I think with The Last Jedi, a lot of people kind of wanted Rey to join Kylo, and I feel like it would have
Hmm.
maybe to like some people it would kind of been an interesting way to end things, you know, and it just kind of keeps people guessing. Like, but if you kind of end it like that, it's like, oh my gosh, like this crew was a family, and now it's like really tense, you know, and it's like Revan could maybe go either way, and Bastila's literally on the dark side. Like, for me, I find that more interesting than being like, what's going to happen to Bastila? And then you see her tortured for like the third movie, like a lot of it. Like, I think it's more
Right.
interesting to just have her turn to the dark side. But what do you think?
Yeah, I agree, and I think that that's kind of a classic, the second act, right, where everything goes wrong and it ends on a real down note. So yeah, so you just get the whole crew of the Ebon Hawk, not in a good place, very distrusting of one another. I think maybe you get some sort of reference if we've been playing on the Force bond between Revan and Bastila, up to this point. Maybe he makes a mention to Jolie that he can't hear her anymore or something like that. Could be interesting, or I don't know. But yeah, a lot of good fun ideas there to play with to wrap up this part of the story anyways.
Yeah, and we'll dive into it in the future, and we'll chronicle what happens on each world, like how we would see it happening cinematically for the best kind of cinematic experience, and kind of like touching on like what genre the movie as a whole would be, what genres and films like each section would kind of like be drawing on. So I'm excited for this next chapter
Yeah,
of the Ebon Hawk, and after the second film, you know, we'll chronicle the third. So
that's right.
so yeah, thanks for joining us on the Ebon Hawk podcast, and we'll just close out. And you can find us on Instagram at Ebon Hawk Podcast.
And if you want to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram. It's at astro_droid_. The Ebon Hawk can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, as well as everywhere else that Anchor podcasts are distributed. Subscriptions, reviews, and shares help us out.
Our intro and outro themes were composed by Alistair Schurman at alistairsounds.wixsite.com/Alistair Sounds. Our transition music was composed by Christian Walker at christianwalkermusic.com. This episode of the Ebon Hawk podcast has been brought to you by Nikki Dog from Patreon. May the Force be with you. We will be back soon. Bye for now.